Hello? Can you hear me? Right. And hello, Glasgow Council! Are you listening? We can hear the other lot. You can hear me okay now? Hello? I'm a retired educational psychologist, and I was in education for 45 years, nearly, give or take a month or two. And I'm really angry about what's happening in our schools. And we need to do something about it, I think. As other people have been saying, right now there's real evidence that our children are being indoctrinated with lies about sex and gender. And we're talking about gender ideology here, and it's woven through both the RSHB, which is the sex education resource, and also the Scottish Government's guidance for supporting trans children in schools, which has already been talked about. Sorry, I'm just sort of lost the place there. If you visit the Education Scotland website, you will find all the resources that we're referring to. It should be remembered that Education Scotland is it's the regulatory body for education, and it is actually sanctioning this. So that's something to think about. If you visit the Education Scotland website, you will also find recommendations for resources. Mermaids, Stonewall, Scottish Trans Alliance, LGBT, Youth Scotland. But what you won't find, there's no Sex Matters guidance, there's no transgender trend guidance, there's no LGB Alliance guidance or references, there's no thoughtful therapists, there's no organisation that has concerns about gender ideology represented on the education regulation website. It's a disgrace. The Scottish Government's guidance supporting transgender pupils in schools was written by trans activists, not by child development professionals. It fails to use robust evidence. It promotes affirmation and social transition. It encourages children to think that they really can change sex. The guidance, by its very existence in schools, actively promotes gender ideology in schools. It's just not right. Despite repeated calls now and petitions to withdraw this guidance, the Scottish Government and our institutions and our schools continue to use it. Several councils have responded to FOI's, Freedom of Information requests. And I'm going to quote one or two summary points in terms of the responses we got. Some councils, there was only a few councils, we need to do more, obviously, to gather more evidence, but some of the councils did respond. Here's the sort of thing that came back. LGBT Youth Scotland groups linked to most schools. Schools themselves do not evaluate the impact of LGBT Youth Scotland's work in schools. No evaluation. The Scottish Government guidance supporting transgender pupils in schools is the only guidance reported by schools to be used. There's other much better guidance out there. It's not being used, as far as we know. Self-ID and social transitioning for pupils is happening across all schools, as reported by the councils requested to reply to the FOIs. Councils reported also that staff have little or no awareness of the risks associated with self-ID and social transitioning. And councils reported that schools have no strategies or plans to manage the social contagion issues that we know are causing some of the difficulties in terms of youngsters identifying as trans. And by the way, there's no clear definition of what trans actually is. So what is going on? Some key facts about gender ideology. Sex is real. Gender is a social construct. Sex and gender are not the same thing. A sense of gender identity is neither innate nor universally experienced. Different cultures and different countries have quite different responses to being male or female. Hello, would you want to identify as a woman in Afghanistan or Iran right now? How about that? For the vast majority of teenagers, completing puberty is a solution to feeling ill at ease with your body or your sex. Gender identity creates real risks for gay children. Gender identity has influenced many gay children referred to the Tavistock Gender Identity Service to think they need to change sex. As Jane said, this is homophobic. Focusing on gender identity in schools perpetuates old-fashioned stereotypes about being male or female. Promotion of gender identity is not progressive, it's regressive. Most children and teenagers presenting as gender dysphoric have other mental health issues. We know this. The last thing we should be doing with these children is affirming and allowing self-identification. That's bollocks. And there's no good evidence for the existence of an internalised concept of gender identity established from birth or during early childhood. As somebody else has already said, the concept of the trans child is a 21st century invention. And there is evidence about the harms caused by gender identity ideology, both psychologically and physically affirmation and social transition to serve and reinforce a delusion. I'm just checking to see what other folk have already said, so I don't repeat too much. I think one thing I will say is there is no evidence for large suicide rates for so-called trans children. These claims are a wicked, wicked lie and deeply harmful. So, gender ideology is a harmful con job. And many people seem to be making an awful lot of money out of it. So, in terms of action, parents, professionals who will put their heads above the parapet, demand your school removes gender ideology from the curriculum. Demand that the Scottish Government guidance is removed with immediate effect. Parents, make your voices heard. Sign the Scottish, I've got a leaflet here, sign the ScotPag petition online, please. Join your school boards, group together, support your each other, lobby your councillors, MSPs, use freedom of information requests. And also, how about contacting Education Scotland and demanding a meeting? There's something wrong at the heart of our institutions. Lastly, support your child. Teach them to be independent thinkers. Teach them to be able to differentiate between fact and lies.